What up, everybody? It's your boy Sack the King up in this motherfucker, man. Back with another video, back with another segment of Game Time. And as y'all can see in the title, initiative goes a long way. Now, before I get into this video, man, I appreciate all my returning viewers. I appreciate all my returning subscribers. I appreciate all my new viewers and my new subscribers. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you can be the first to know and help the channel grow. And also, I'm giving away $100 to a random subscriber once I reach 1,000. And I'm not too far from that, so it could happen anytime soon now. You know what I mean? This video, I wanted to let you guys know that initiative goes a long way, man. And if it's one thing that I mean, it's a lot of jewels that my dad dropped on me, but one thing he told me is don't do shit half-assed in life. You know what I mean? Meaning, if you're gonna do something, do it right. If you're gonna do something, go above the basics of doing it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times people, you know, mostly at jobs or in life or in relationships, we just want to do the bare minimum and think that that's okay to get by because that's been working for us. You know what I'm saying? And when you do the bare minimum, you're only gonna stay at a bare minimum level. You know what I'm saying? I don't know of anybody who's ever done just a bare minimum and have reached higher plateaus that they could have, or you know, or just gained way more in life. You know, like there's no shortcuts in life, obviously, but you can't go through life just doing a bare minimum and expecting, you know, other results from that. You know, and I'll give you all an example. This is kind of a life story too, right? So, you know, this is just an example. I'm gonna use myself as an example of initiative goes a long way, right? So when I first started working for the Department of Defense, right, I started off being a housekeeper for the Department of Veteran Affairs, okay? And at first I'm like, man, I don't want to be scrubbing no toilets. Like, I don't want to be doing none of this shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I had to put my pride to the side because I had a child on the way, you know? Maybe this is, yeah, I had a child on the way. When I got that job, I had just found out that my youngest son's mom was pregnant. You know what I mean? So that automatically kicked me up into a higher gear of, man, I got to make something happen because I got another person depending on me now, and I already had 2 children prior who were still dependent on them child support checks to be rolling in. You know what I'm saying? So I had a little money saved up from this time. Now this story takes place back in March of 2015. Now, the last job that I had prior to that, I had a 6-month contract with the state, and that ended in December. So I had a little bit of money because I was doing a lot of hustling at the time as well. And so, you know, I ended up I had some money for the next couple of months to be cool. I had a couple assets that, you know, I ended up getting rid of in order to stay afloat too, because sometimes you got to do that in life, right? But so I get this job. Now, when I first get this job, right, I'm working in like the hardest department of the hospital, which is the OR and the ICU areas. If you've been to a hospital, you know the ICU is the intensive care unit where there's a lot to do all the time. I mean, I'm talking about you know, as far as the ICU, we had to come in there and decontaminate rooms. We're changing out the trash. We're dealing with the hazardous waste. You know what I'm saying? All of that shit that housekeeping, janitor, I guess you could say, for better terms, has to do. But aside from that, we had to clean the recovery area where patients would just come from the operating rooms and go and recover from. And in the operating rooms, man, that like these doctors and nurses, you know, the fucked up thing about it too, before I get into that, is that when you're working for the VA, most people that work there are veterans themselves, like us. At this time, they were only hiring veteran workers, right? So, but like I said, the nurses, the doctors, and all that were all veterans themselves, 99% of them. So you would think that, they would be trying to look out for veterans as well. You know what I mean? In the sense that you're not gonna just leave shit all fucked up for the next person to come clean up. But most of these doctors and nurses were ex-officers. If you ever been in the military, you know that officers don't look at themselves. They look at themselves way higher than the average non-commissioned officers and lower enlisted. That goes for any branch. So these people still had the mentality of like, whatever, clean that shit up. I don't give a fuck how much time you did in the military or what you did in the military. I was an officer and now I'm a doctor working as a civilian. So these operating rooms would be fucked up. I'm talking about blood everywhere, bodily fluids everywhere, and it was a 4-man crew, and we had to come and, clean up all this shit. All right. So that's 3 different areas that I had to work. You know what I'm saying? And I always took pride in my job and tried to do the best that I could do because I'm a veteran too, right? And it might be me on the other end of one of these, rooms that I'm cleaning. So every job that I've had, I always would try to be the person that I would want to do that job. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I'll get into that a little bit more later on in the story. I'm trying not to make this video too long, but if the message gets out to somebody, then I don't care how long this video is, right? So, anyways, I get moved, right? The reason why I got moved is because one dude that was working with me and my boy from the Army, we was working together. You know what I'm saying? He got me. He's the one that kind of like told me, hey man, come to this area, like, which I found out that was one of the worst areas to be in, but they had their own little system going, so it was kind of cool for him. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my bro D. But one of the other niggas that we was working with, I don't think he really liked our camaraderie because we were so cool, and I kind of came in and broke up whatever they had going on, within the little circle of, workers, because they had already been working there like a lot of months prior. So he said whatever he had to say to get me moved. Okay, cool. That was a blessing in disguise. Now, there was an old man named Mr. Leon, right? And he worked these buildings called T buildings. Now, these were kind of like, they weren't inside of a building, but they were like, actually, let me back that up. They sent me to what is it called? They sent me to the building in the VA where there's where they do like foot care. You know what I'm saying? I forget what the building name was, but anyways, they did a lot of foot care in there, right? So, I go in there and I'm busting my ass every single night in that building, both floors. You know what I'm saying? It was me and another guy that was mainly there, and then they would rotate mostly like two other people, right? But and then we had this other girl named Nas working there, but she used to always figure out a way to fucking get out of the work. But anyways, man, I used to go out my way to make sure that all this shit was cool. You know what I'm saying? And so eventually, they heard that I was doing a good job there, and they moved me to the T buildings, which is even easier. And because the T buildings, all you really had to do was just take out the trash, clean up the bathroom, maybe mop a little bit if that T building had tile floors. And that was basically it, man. I was chilling, you know what I'm saying? But a guy named Mr. Leon, who was working that side of the building, who was working the T buildings prior to that, he kind of showed me the ropes, and he was kind of like showing me extra little things that I could do just to keep the people off my back and keep those doctors and nurses in those buildings satisfied, because he had already worked in those buildings. He knew the routine. He knew what they liked and how they liked it. So he just passed that information on to me. So that's what I would do. I would make sure not only was the trash emptied out, not only was the floors swept or mopped, but I would also make sure all the supplies were filled up. I would make sure every sink was clean, even there was nothing, not even a drop on the actual metal parts of the sink. Like, I was just doing extra little shit like that. If there was cobwebs, I was taking that shit out. Shit that I probably was supposed to be doing, but, sometimes, like I said, some people want to do the bare minimum, and they've been getting by with that so long and nobody's saying nothing. But me, I listened to everything Mr. Leon said, and I probably am forgetting some other little things that I used to do just to, not have to have anybody reporting me or saying, hey, this guy forgot to do this or forgot to do that. I was doing everything I could. And besides, this was one of the easiest areas to work in the hospital. And I just did all this in the other building to get afforded the T billings, right? And I was chilling in that motherfucker, bruh. Let me tell you, I was chilling in those T billings, right? So I remember, one day a guy had came to me out of one of those buildings. He was like, hey, man, can I talk to you for a minute? I was like, yeah, what's going on? He was like, hey, man, like, I noticed that you do a lot more than what the last person, I don't know if he was talking about Mr. Leon or anybody prior, but he was like, man, I noticed that when I come in here, everything smells good, everything is clean. Like I can tell like you really put some effort and time into the job. And what I was thinking was, shit, I got 8 hours to do this, and it's only like 4 T billings I really got to do. Like everybody knew I had a cush ass little position in that shit at that point, right? But this guy happened to be in one of the administrative T billings, and basically what he told me was, hey man, I noticed that you're doing a good job, and I just want to know, like, is this it for you? Like, are you cool with this? And this kind of goes into the last video I made about not letting your situation define you, because you can have 100 losses, but all you need is 1 win. And I was like, and some people that work for the VA, they've already worked other jobs or they're retired, so this is it for them. They don't care. But me, like, I got kids and I got bills to pay and I got a kid on the way. You feel me? So I'm trying to get a pay raise. I'm trying to get whatever I can do. You know what I mean? But all I know is at this point, I'm doing the best that I can do in this situation. So, like I said, I used to go up out my way a little bit. You know what I mean? And this guy was like, hey man, do you know what I do here? And I'm like, nah. He's like, I do a lot of administrative work. And he was like, do you got a resume? He was like, man, give me your resume and I can type it up for you real good, man. And I can, in case you're trying to get another job or another position within the hospital. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like, cool. He's like, I don't know how much it'll help, but, I'm sure I do this. So I know what they look for when you're trying to apply for other jobs within the VA. So let me fix up your resume, man. And that's just like my little way of saying thank you. So I was like, cool, man, thank you. You know what I'm saying? And so I gave my resume or whatever, and he hooked it up. You know what I'm saying? Now, I used to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week up at the hospital. Not because I wanted to, but because, like I said, I had kids to feed and I had a kid on the way. And I was paying child support for my oldest 2 kids at the time, right? So, like, they, every time that some overtime was handed out, I'm the first person to raise my hand. I was taking up all the overtime because most people was like, nah, I don't want to do that shit. Some people would, but most of the people was like, nah. But here I go, shit, me, I ain't got nothing else to do, me, and I can remember it was like a 5-month stretch where I was just working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, like 7 in the morning till whatever time at night, you know what I mean? But, it was because I was taking the initiative not only to, try to do as good of a job as I can, but I wanted to get into a better position. Once I seen that if you do good work, they'll put you in easier spots, I was like, shit, this is my way to get into the most cushiest spot as I can, which was linen. That's where everybody wanted to get, but these motherfuckers was holding on to their jobs. You know what I'm saying? So I let them hook up my resume. I still keep doing what I'm doing, but everybody's seeing me around the hospital. You know what I'm saying? They like, man, every time I come to work, you're here. Every time I leave work, you're here. I even come in on off days, you're here. Like, man, do you ever go home? And I'm just like, man, shit, kids gotta eat. That was always my slogan. Like, man, kids gotta eat. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, like I said, while I'm doing these jobs, man, I'm doing it in the aspect of I'm a veteran too. So I'm gonna want the same kind of care provided to me as I'm giving to the next veteran. So I always used to, even if I was scrubbing toilets, I would make sure I was scrubbing the fuck out of that toilet. You know what I'm saying? And it sounds kind of degrading and low, but hey, man, there's more to the story if you keep listening, right? So what had happened was one of the dudes in linen he was a fucking weirdo. This nigga got caught smoking weed in the parking lot, right, of the VA. And when they caught him smoking weed, the VA police rolled up on him. He ended up having like a shotgun and a pistol in his trunk, right? So needless to say, that nigga was out of there. So when this position opened up, you know, they was only letting in favorites at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like who's working the hardest, or you know who they little favorite was. But and that's another thing about building relationships. You know what I'm saying? Like I was building relationships all this time that I'm working in the hospital. You know what I'm saying? So I was in good standings with everybody, whether they was in the housekeeping department or in other departments. You know, my name started getting around like, hey, that's him, you know, hey, you know, people waving, and they like, who is that? And they would tell them like, hey man, this guy worked in my building, he's doing a good job. Like every building that I worked in, I would always be making friends with people, because you never know what people will be able to help you or hurt you. And you got to be cognizant in life of the people that can help you and the people that can hurt you, right? So I just, I'm doing my job, which is what they like, and I'm having conversations with all these people too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm building a rapport with them, right? So man, I get into linen. Like I said, I said all that to say that, boom, when the time came for linen, my name was one of the first names to be mentioned, because I was putting in work up there like Monday through Monday. I'm in that bitch 12 hours a day. Whatever y'all need done, hey, he gonna do it. And like I said, it wasn't so much because I wanted to, it's just because I had kids to feed, man. You know what I'm saying? And I got a kid on the way, so I got to prepare for this, right? And I was just really thankful that this was the highest paying job that I've had at this point, which looking back, it was only like $14 an hour. But at this point, that's the highest paying job that I had. Sometimes I would have to work 2 jobs in order to, make that shit. So I was thankful for the job, and that was another reason why I would go out my way too, and the work was too easy. Like I used to see people complaining all the time or just doing the bare minimum, and I'm like, these are the people that's getting talked about in all these other offices that I'm hearing, and these are the people that's always getting put in these shitty ass sections of the hospital, you know what I mean? So I ain't gonna let that be me. So anyways, man, longer story short, I get chose to be in linen. Now in linen, you're chilling, man. You're chilling in linen, bruh. All I'm doing is sitting back on my little pad, chilling all fucking day. I might have to stamp. They used to have this little thing where you used to have to press the logo into the scrubs or into the uniforms or whatever. That's too easy. Give me that shit. That's too easy, right? Or what I did in the morning is I would go fill up the scrub machine on the 3rd or 4th floor, and then my building was my main area building that I had to worry about was the prosthetics building, which was one of the easiest buildings, because all I had to do was take towels and just make sure that the towels was full. So I really only did that shit in the morning after I filled up the scrubs in the machine, and in the afternoon I would go over there after lunchtime and I would make sure everything was full. And I always made sure everything was full, right? Now here's the caveat to that. In linen, once you reach linen, you're not supposed to touch any chemicals. You're not supposed to touch any trash, nothing, because you're working with linen. You don't want any of that bacteria or germs or anything to get on any of these clothing items or anything that I had to deliver to the prosthetics building, right? So I remember it was a few times I would go in the prosthetics building and they'd be like, hey, because they knew that I worked in that department. I got the same uniform as everybody else. They don't know the difference that I'm in linen, that I'm not supposed to do some of this shit, but they just look at me like, hey, can you come do this? Hey, can you come do that? So they would ask me, like, sometimes in that building after I put the towels and shit away, like, hey man, do you think you can take out our trashes? Or, we can't find the guy who's in charge of this building. You think you can do this? And I would take out their trash, no problem, you know what I mean? Because I still had keys to the hack closet, which is where they keep all of the cleaning materials, trash bags, mops, and all that other shit, right? So, so every now and then they'd ask me, could I take out the trash? No problem. They would be like, hey man, the bathroom's, dirty, can you clean up, you know what I'm saying? Even though I didn't work that building, they just seen the uniform, so they just would ask me to do it. And I wouldn't say nothing because I had the keys. It'd take me like 5-10 minutes to clean the bathroom. Okay, cool. I'm chilling anyway the whole day, you know what I'm saying? And two reasons why I did this shit. Now, somebody else might have been like, man, that ain't my job. I'm in linen now. I don't have to do all that. But my thing is like I don't want to make the spot hot. Like, even though this person is probably fucking off or whatever, all it takes is one phone call for them to complain, and it's gonna make everybody hot. You know what I'm saying? And plus, I don't like the spot being hot even though I'm in linen and I'm chilling. I don't want the spot to be hot and then I still have to listen to a lecture because one motherfucker fucked up. You know what I'm saying? And back then it used to be like, if one motherfucker fucked up in their section, everybody had to hear about that shit. So I'm like, shit, it's nothing. Like, I'ma just do the shit. You know what I'm saying? So I would take out their trash. I would vacuum if they needed me to real quick, or I would clean the bathroom real quick if they leave, and I would bounce. You know what I'm saying? So one day, the supervisor in the department, he comes and says, hey man, he said, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? You need me to clean the bathroom or something? He's like, no, man. He's like, I found out that you're not supposed to be doing this. Why you didn't tell me that you were in linen and that you weren't supposed to be doing this? I'm like, man, listen, like it would take longer for you guys to try to track this person down or make a call and, make the situation more than it is. If I got the key to the closet, I'm gonna just do it. Like, and he was like, you know what? I like that, man. I really like that. So, that was part of me taking initiative just to do some shit. You know what I'm saying? But really, I just didn't want to make the spot hot too. You know what I'm saying? That was the most important thing, right? So I remember it was like the next week after he pulled me to the side, you know what I mean? And this guy was like, hey man, he was like, man, I really appreciate the work that you do around here. A lot of people have a lot of good things to say about you. He was like, man, are you cool with just being in housekeeping? I got a position open, you know what I'm saying, for a job. If you would like to interview for it. He was like, you got a resume? I was like, yeah, I got a resume. He was like, all right, yeah, shoot me your resume and go and apply for this job. Now, that all comes full circle because the guy had fixed up my resume and he knew what to say in the resume for these type of jobs, which is on the admin side, which is on the whole other side. You know what I mean? It's not housekeeping no more. It's a better paying job. It's an actual GS position. It's not a WG, which is wage grade position. So I'm like, shit, I was ready. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay. So this guy's chasing me down like 2 or 3 more times. Like, hey man, did you apply for the position? Like, hey, are you willing to take an interview? So I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? So I remember I interviewed for the position, right? So I interviewed for the position and, I thought the interview went really well, you know what I mean? And so what happened is I didn't get that position. It was more of like an admin position anyway. A girl named Amanda got that position. Now Amanda used to work in the food court area, right? But this girl was one of the nicest people still today that I've ever met. I always tell myself, right, if I ever become successful in life to where I own my own business, there's people in life that I've worked with that I like the way that they work and I would hire them. I would go look for them and try to see if they would come work for me. And Amanda is one of Amanda Klinkenberg, I think that was her last name, is one of the people that, I would if I owned a company, I would like her to come work for me because that girl was nice. She did everything that she was asked. And, and even went ahead, because I would work with Amanda, right? So I heard one day I'm sitting down and I'm eating breakfast and I heard her say, yeah, I got hired. And I'm like, oh yeah, where you get hired at? And she told me that it was for the job that I'd interviewed for. So I'm like, shit, well, ain't got that one, but I'm going to keep doing what I do because I'm in linen chilling like a motherfucking villain. You feel me? So anyways, and she was deserving of that as well. I wasn't even mad. Now, if it was a motherfucker who was doing a bare minimum or somebody, I might have been like, this nigga or this bitch. But Amanda was cool, you know what I mean? And anybody who knows Amanda from the VA, they would tell you like she was very deserving of that position. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, so I remember like either that day, that afternoon, that was in the morning time, or the very next day, I'm doing my rounds in the prosthetics building, like I said, because I was delivering linen there. And the supervisor rushes out and he said, hey man, he was like, hey, we hired somebody for that position, but don't trip. That's not the job that I wanted you to get anyway. I just wanted you to come in and get familiar with the people and just give an interview. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I got a better position opened up, which is, you know, kind of like this, pretty much the same exact job what I do now. You know what I mean? I handle money. I'm what you call the money man. You know what I mean? Like I buy a lot of shit for the military. You know what I'm saying? But at this time, I was working for the VA. So he was like, really, man? He explained it to me like, man, you know, don't get discouraged because this is the job that I really wanted you to have. That one is kind of like an admin one, but I wanted you to go through the interview so they can get a good feel for you because I've been telling them about you. So he was like, man, would you mind coming in for another interview? He was like, really? This one isn't going to be so formal. It's just so they get a good, you know, feel for you. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. You know what I'm saying? So I came in there and it was pretty much the same people except for one person. It was like one person under the boss who wasn't there at the first interview, named Elmer. And this guy would be one of the reasons why I ended up moving to Hawaii. And maybe I'll tell y'all that story in another video. But back to this one, right? So they interviewed again and you know, I ended up getting the job. You know what I'm saying? And longer story short, man, it was because I put initiative into what I was doing. Yeah, there was other reasons why I was doing that, but nothing changed as far as the initiative of me going out my way to do above the average or above the bare minimum, man. And that's the message in this video. Because also when I moved to Hawaii, right? Also when I moved to Hawaii and I started working there, you know, and this goes back into what I was saying earlier in the video about the relationships that you build with people, right? So I moved to Hawaii and I'm working there. I'm doing pretty much the same job, but this time I'm working for the Army. You know what I mean? And this was a promotion because of what I realized in the VA is that working for the VA, I worked there for like 3 years total within, you know, prosthetics department and housekeeping, is that the VA is no really room for growth. You have to wait for somebody to die, wait for somebody to retire, wait for somebody to get fired, which is very hard. So I kind of like maxed out my position to where I realized like there's no room for growth, you know, here in this. And I seen how they were doing some of the other employees, because the guy that hired me, he ended up leaving like 2 months after I started working there. So I got a whole new supervisor, and you know, it was just a whole different vibe around there once he took over. You know, nothing bad to say about him because me and him never really had any issues, and I think we got to an understanding to a point where he just let me do my thing because I was doing the work and I was making a lot of veterans happy up there. You know what I'm saying? But you know, like I said, it was all a part of the initiative. I was taking the initiative to go out my way to do extra things for veterans, because a lot of these guys that which was my section, was in wheelchairs and shit like that. Like I said, I worked in the prosthetics department, right? So a lot of those veterans would come by my office and be like, hey man, thank you so much for this and thank you so much for that, and you know what I mean, and they noticed that, you know what I mean. So anyways, like I said, I moved to Hawaii, and you know, I'm doing the same job, and I'm doing it, and I'm doing everything that they ask me to, even more sometimes. And you know, I'm building good relationships with all the people that I work with there. Like when I worked there in Hawaii, when I first got that job, it was like a family. You know what I mean? Like I felt like man, like out of all the jobs I ever had, I've made friends and all that shit from other jobs. But this shit, like really, we had a good time up there, and I'm still some friends to this day with some of the people. I still text them, you know what I mean. But longer story short, man, there was a guy that had worked in that department, but he moved up and got a promotion up inside the actual hospital. I was working in the warehouse, and what I was doing was I was ordering all of the supplies for the whole hospital, for the operating rooms and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Which is kind of a load, you know, for a person, but hey man, I'm living in Hawaii. I can do this shit, you know what I mean? So it was nothing, and I did a good job at it. I did a good job so much, and like I said, I built those relationships that when a position came open in the hospital, you know what I mean, they told this guy, hey, this is the guy that you need to hire. You know what I'm saying? He's a great worker. You know what I mean? Like, this dude gets shit done. And so longer story short, man, I ended up getting another promotion. I already took a promotion leaving California to come to Hawaii, and I got another promotion within like a year, you know, to go up into the hospital and do the same job. But this time I'm ordering all of the major equipment for the hospital. Like, I'm talking everything from like shit, even shit down to like microwaves, all the way up to like fucking $200,000 pieces of laser equipment that they performing surgeries on and shit. Like, if you name it, I was buying that shit for them. You know what I mean? So, you know, I had a great run there. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I made a lot of people happy every job that I had for the government so far. You know what I'm saying? And it's been about shit. What I'm a little over 8 years now. You know, since the March of 2015 when I first got the job, and now, which I work for, you know, I still work for the Department of Defense, but I'm in Japan, and you know, it's just been a blessing, man. But it all started with initiative. If y'all been listening to the story, you can see how, you know, I just kept climbing. I didn't settle for the bare minimum in life, and I didn't do the bare minimum in the job, you know. And that's the whole moral of this story, is that initiative will go a long way, man. So you can't just think that you're gonna get here doing shit here. It don't work like that. Even in relationships, even in anything that you're trying to do in life, just don't do the bare minimum, and give the more initiative that you put forward to it, you know, the more that you'll see yourself rise. And it doesn't happen overnight, man. It took me 8 years to get to Japan, you know, and Japan wasn't never even on my mind. This was actually a coworker of mine's, you know, dream to come to Japan. It's just some other stuff had happened at the hospital. The person who hired me had left, and there was new people coming, and I just found out they were trying to kind of like backbite me up there with stuff that I was trying to do to progress. So I just said, you know what, man, it might be time to go. Now, what's such a coincidence about this is somebody got hired at the same time as me, right? Shout out to my boy Woods. And he ended up, when I came to Japan, he ended up getting a promotion to go to property where he had came from before getting a promotion to come to where we were at. And now, a year and a half later, he is the supervisor of our old department. You know what I mean? So shout out to my boy Woods, man. But Woods is the type of person that I would hire if I owned a company too, because he doesn't do the bare minimum. He has initiative, and he goes above and beyond what his job is. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to Woods. Maybe a little bit too much sometimes. Sorry, Woods. You my boy, man. I know you watch my channel, man. Love you to death. But, you know, but it's just all about initiative sometimes, especially when it comes to work, man. And so that's the message here. Sorry I made this video over 30 minutes, but as long as one person watches the whole video and gets something out of it, that's all that matters, man. Hit that subscribe button below so you can be the first to know and help the channel grow. It's King.